Yuta, the main character, had come to understand a profound truth: there were things in this world one should never trust. He had learned this lesson through bitter experience. Every time he let his guard down, he paid the price, and the cause was invariably kind girls. This was the unfolding story of a boy whose faith in women had been systematically shattered by their repeated betrayals. Wherever Yuta went, people tended to look past him, their gazes never truly settling on him. Girls would act friendly, but never because of him. Their attention was always, without fail, directed toward his older brother. He frequently heard requests like, "Could you give this to your brother?" or apologetic confessions such as, "I'm sorry, Yuta, it wasn't you I liked. It's your brother I'm into." Each time, these words cut deeper into him. By now, he had ceased trusting girls. They swarmed around his brothers, leaving Yuta to stand perpetually in the shadow of it all. Then there was Hojo, a girl who inexplicably stood out. She greeted him every morning with a radiant smile. Yet, Yuta's emotional walls were high. He believed all girls were the same, assuming she was just like the rest. Every day, she approached him with a cheerful greeting, attempting to crack his icy demeanor. One day, however, he snapped, demanding she give it a rest already, expressing his sickness of it and his refusal to say it back. She calmly responded that she couldn't hear his reply. Cornered, he muttered a repeated good morning. She beamed back her own good morning, and just like that, she walked away with that stunning smile. Yuta watched her leave, his thoughts swirling as he chastised himself for getting flustered, insisting she was just like the others. But he couldn't shake the feeling, she had been approaching him a lot lately. Hojo, his classmate, embodied perfection, beautiful, kind, and universally admired. Rumor even suggested she would be the ideal match for his third-year brother, Tahano. In the midst of his thoughts, she suddenly inquired what kind of bread he liked, staring directly into his eyes. He inwardly questioned why she was asking him that. Hesitantly, he replied, "Melon bread." She smiled, then enthusiastically suggested he stop by the cafeteria that day, assuring him they would definitely have melon bread. He pondered what was peculiar about this girl, why she was talking to him in such a manner, and what her underlying motive might be. Despite his suspicions, he still went and purchased the melon bread. Later in class, a buzz of excitement filled the room as it was time for gym. Yuta noticed Hojo once more, now in her basketball jersey, looking as dazzling as ever while playing just a few feet away from him. For the first time, he found himself watching not his brother, but her. His friend nudged him with a grin, asking Yuta if he knew that girl and if he didn't think she was really cute. The friend continued, remarking that one could never truly tell what she was thinking, but suggested that mysterious vibe was part of her charm. He described Hojo as always doing her own thing, not only cute but also intelligent and great at sports. On the court, they watched her confidently dribble the basketball. Yuta looked on skeptically, doubting she would pull off the shot, questioning why she was calling for the pass from such a distance, and believing there was no way she would score. She took the shot and missed. He inwardly confirmed his prediction. But to Yuta's surprise, she smiled, proud and pleased. His friend laughed, exclaiming that she had only missed by a little and asking what Yuta had even been watching, then playfully accusing him of staring at Hojo. Yuta looked away, denying it. But just then, her eyes met his, and she blushed. All three boys froze. She turned away with a smile, leaving Yuta stunned, wondering what that moment had been. His friends joked that she was probably looking at the long-haired guy beside them, but Yuta couldn't shake the moment. Later, walking out of school, his thoughts raced relentlessly. He admitted Hojo had been driving him crazy lately because he couldn't figure her out. Yet, she had never once mentioned his brother. He wondered if it could be true, if she was actually interested in him. He imagined her walking up to him, only for the scenario to twist into her asking if it was him, Yuta, and then confessing that she was actually in love with Tahano and hoped he noticed him. The daydream shattered like glass. He looked up, and there she was, talking to his brother. Another girl whispered, asking who that super cute girl was and if she wasn't a first year. Yuta's heart sank, confirming his suspicion that she was, after all, just like the others. Suddenly, a group of girls, fans of his brother, shoved past him, declaring they weren't letting him get ahead of them. He was knocked down, trampled like a forgotten obstacle. He reflected that it was always like this, ever since he could remember. Any girl who showed interest in him was really just trying to get closer to his brother. They would smile, act friendly, but their eyes always gazed past him, which was why he could never trust them. Just then, a hand reached out. Hojo asked if he was okay. He looked up to see it was her. She offered him a handkerchief, inviting him to use it if he wanted. He remained silent, then finally spoke, questioning why she wasn't going after his brother like the others. She paused, looked toward his brother, then turned back with calm eyes, explaining that she found him, and that was all, urging him to just take it already. Yuta blushed and offered his thanks. She smiled and sat beside him, welcoming him to use it, but reminding him to return the handkerchief, as it was her favorite. Yuta watched her, doubting her sincerity and thinking she was just like the rest, insisting there was no way she was different. But deep inside, something felt different. He stared down at the handkerchief, reminding himself that there were things in this world he must never trust. Later that day, someone asked Tahano his zodiac sign, and Yuta heard Hojo's voice again. He noted that she had been talking to him a lot lately, even calling out his name, yet he still told himself she was probably after his big brother. But suddenly, Hojo popped her head close, way too close, greeting him cheerfully. Startled, he greeted her back. She asked him what his sign was. He replied, Virgo. She repeated Virgo, staring at him like she was analyzing something deep. He asked what of it. Before he could react, she grabbed his tie and ripped it right off. He yelled in disbelief and confusion, asking what she was doing. He chased after her, bewildered, seriously demanding she give it back. A sudden shift occurred as a girl named Urara cheerfully announced, "Good morning," striking a pose. She presented Urara's outfit of the day, featuring her special sky blue cardigan, pom-pom hairstyle, and blue harmony juice. She twirled, inviting them to check it out, explaining that Virgo's lucky color today was blue and dark green was unlucky, advising to ditch that tie. The narration continued, describing Urara's special blue veil backpack. Yuta internally sighed, wondering what was happening. He thought that just as he expected, he would never understand what was going on in her head. He silently asserted to Hojo that he hated to break it to her, but he did not believe in horoscopes, and there was no way he was trusting her, not after everything. Still, he put the tie back on, only to immediately be smacked in the head by a ball. Then he was splashed by a passing gardener, then trampled by a crowd of girls. This day was a total disaster, just one bad thing after another. Behind him, a classmate remarked, asking if it was just him or if Yuta looked more exhausted than usual. Another agreed that was true, then wondered if Hojo-san had actually been right the whole time. Meanwhile, Hojo talked to herself sweetly in her usual dreamy tone. Yuta wondered if maybe she was easier to read than he had thought, and if her lucky color could be white. She rose from her seat, and he headed toward her desk to return something she had left, a tiny doll. But just as he leaned down, his tie snagged on the desk leg. He slipped and crashed right into her. She turned in surprise, just in time, as a rush of girls stormed through the hallway, aiming for his brother. She would have been trampled. Hojo remarked on the sheer size of the crowd, noting that one more step and he would have been flattened, and considered him lucky she was there. Yuta froze, bewildered by what was happening. She beamed, presenting a blue item and exclaiming that it was his lucky color. He noticed her hair was blue, then questioned why she had called him over again. She grinned, stating it was for the weather charm. He insisted that wasn't it, pressing her on whether that was not his lucky item, expressing frustration and confusion about her behavior. Suddenly, a crowd of girls surrounded a radiant figure, exclaiming how handsome Ryusama looked that day. The glowing boy in the center was none other than Yuta's older brother, Tahano. A few girls chattered excitedly, asking if they knew his younger brother also attended that school, and then questioning who he was. They glanced over at Yuta, a gloomy boy watching in silence, whispering about that guy, Yuta, and suggesting that if they got closer to him, they might be able to get his brother's number. Yuta inwardly confirmed that this was precisely why he couldn't stand girls, they only approached him for Tahano's sake, which was why he would never trust them, ever. Just then, a bright voice chimed in as Hojo, her shiny braids bouncing, announced Toncoin's return. She called out a welcome. Yuta snapped, telling her not to welcome him back, as she was sitting in his seat. She looked at him puzzled, then slid a bit, suggesting he could have half, asking if that was good enough. He vehemently stated there was no way he could sit like that. He observed this beautiful girl sitting in his chair as if it were normal, knowing everyone adored her and that even in this class, she had fans. He suspected she was just talking to him to get close to his brother, finding it obvious. But then she leaned in, remarking that he was writing in his journal and asking if he was confident. He blinked, confused by her words, not understanding what she was talking about. She smirked, then declared he had forgotten. At that moment, she stood up, ready for class, announcing they should get ready as it was the math quiz. Yuta exclaimed in surprise and bewilderment. She walked off, cool as ever, not seeming even slightly stressed. He noticed Urara had also just found out about the quiz but did not seem remotely stressed either. Other students echoed Urara's statement. Everyone else in class was totally shocked, but none of them had it as bad as Yuta. The teacher called out a score of 5 out of 50, announcing that all students with 10 points or less should not forget to attend makeup class the following day. Everyone was traumatized, except for those who passed easily. Izumi barely dodged a failing grade, grinning, while some even remarked that it was way too easy. Meanwhile, his friend chuckled, telling Yuta not to worry about it, pointing out that another guy got 40 out of 50 and didn't even know there was a test that day, which was truly painful. Another friend then asked who got the perfect score, then, after a pause, suggested it might be because Yuta was talking to Hojo before the test, acting all confident. Yuta fired back that he wasn't, both of them laughing. Still, deep down, he thought he really needed to go home and study, acknowledging the sheer amount of work. His friends ran off to the arcade together, but he stopped mid-step, muttering that he needed a number, not to go home. A library sign caught his eye. The scene cut to a quiet study table where Yuta sat down alone. He thought a change of scenery might help. He stared down at his notebook and his math problems, pondering that point P would not move. He still didn't understand it. Frustrated, he ruffled his hair. Then, a voice stated he had made a mistake. He jumped in his seat with a small exclamation of surprise. Everyone in the library turned. He clapped a hand over his mouth, muttering an apology. Standing beside him was Hojo. She casually remarked that he was studying hard. He couldn't believe she was there, thinking she didn't seem like the type to use a library, expecting her to be at a fancy cafe or something after school. He glanced at her, yet, here she was, right beside him, flipping through a light novel with a ridiculously long title, Flirty Beautiful Girl, how outrageous. The most beautiful girl in school flirts with me, so I almost got the wrong idea, but there's no way she's actually into me. He chuckled without meaning to. She turned, asking him what he found amusing. He quickly dismissed it as nothing, hiding his face, embarrassed. She leaned in a bit, asking why he was sitting next to her then. He asked awkwardly, stammering about her wanting to help or something. She glanced down, observing that he still hadn't written anything, which was true, he had been staring at a blank page the entire time. He asked if it was from today's quiz. He snapped that of course it was. He then wondered if Takayama hadn't said Hojo was smart, yet she had been spacing out, reading novels like that, questioning if she really paid attention in class, as it didn't seem like it. Suddenly, she stated flatly that he had failed, holding up his quiz paper. He exclaimed in protest, frantically looking around, his face burning with embarrassment. He fired back, asking about her score. She smirked and slowly revealed her test, a perfect 50 out of 50. The smug look on her face was unbearable. She even shoved the paper toward his mouth. He conceded, telling her he understood already, and brushed it away. With a sly smile, she reminded him that he was the one who asked. Then, she softly and genuinely offered to teach him the parts he didn't understand. There was a glimmer in her eyes, a gentle light, as if she were whispering a repeated offer to teach him. He conceded, agreeing to study together. She pointed out the formulas, the shortcuts, and the things he had missed. He initially suspected she had just memorized the answers, but realized she was right, he had indeed only tried to memorize things. Hours passed, papers became covered in scribbles, answers were corrected, and concepts were understood. He exhaled, declaring it was done. It was already past 5 p.m. He looked over and softly called Hojo's name. She turned, and for a second, everything stopped. She looked radiant, like light filtering through a feather. He stared for a moment too long, his breath catching in his throat, astonished by her beauty, comparing her to a feather. She asked if he had finished, explaining she wanted to check his answers, perhaps after he finished reading. He, blushing, confirmed he was finished. He wondered if she had been waiting for him to finish, and why, contemplating if Hojo was actually interested in him. As she scooted over, looking toward his answers, she affirmed they were all correct, with a blush on her face. Yuta's heart pounded after seeing and hearing her words, his mind almost exploding as she came close. He observed her then stating her mother had just gotten home, so she had to leave, as she lived away from the library. Someone approached and asked if he was still there. Yuta, who had studied all day, ended up getting a perfect score the next day. In his first year of high school, Yuta was out shopping. He found a vegetable he wanted, thinking how expensive vegetables were and questioning if they were getting pricier than last time, noting one had to be quite well off to afford something like this as he grabbed the cabbage. Suddenly, he heard Hojo's voice exclaiming about veggies, and she was there. Their eyes met, and they were both shocked, at least, Yuta was. She greeted him, and he wondered why she was there, asking if she was also out shopping. He replied in affirmation. Seeing Hojo in such casual clothes was somewhat refreshing, she did look quite cute. But then he suddenly realized what he was even thinking about. He got startled as she seemed to not understand his sudden shift. He thought she was messing with his head again. He looked into her basket and saw it was stacked with only snacks. He asked if she had been out getting stuff and what was on her list. She showed him a list. He took it in his hands and started reading it, then suddenly realized she was buying something totally different from what was on the list. Her inner justification was that they said she could use the extra money for snacks. But Yuta told her she had her priorities wrong, reminding her she was supposed to be the smart one. She held her snack in her hand as he told her she could grab the snacks later and instructed her to put these back now. But she just held the snack tightly in her arms, refusing to give it up. She looked at him with a stare, and he thought about what that look meant, admitting he seriously couldn't tell what this girl was thinking. As she put the snack back, she got attracted to the ice cream. He raised his voice, admonishing her that he didn't see any ice cream on the list, and demanding she give him that list. As he grabbed her, and with her alongside him, they did a lot of shopping, picking up various items. At the end, as she cashed out, she was very happy, thanking Tono for being able to get everything she needed, including snacks. She thought, surprisingly, he was a caring guy. He questioned her behavior as she left, thanking him and saying she would catch him later. He replied, "Yeah, see you." The gloomy guy inwardly scoffed, thinking there was no way he'd see her, and wondering how he ended up helping Hojo, of all people, shop. Then someone, the shopkeeper Annie, called out, asking if it was Yukon. He recognized her and called out her name. Annie then asked if the girl just now was his friend, or perhaps his girlfriend. He blushed and freaked out, vehemently denying it, stating she was just a friend, no, not even a friend, just a classmate. Annie stated she had assumed they were close since they seemed to be having fun. He wondered what she meant by having fun. He mused that he didn't think he had ever seen Hojo laugh, though he couldn't help but think she would laugh when his brother was around. He remembered a past incident, a girl laughing alongside him, then hearing her confess that to be honest, she was only talking to him to get closer to his brother. He concluded that wasn't really fun, and vowed to himself, clenching his fist, that he would never be deceived again. It looked like he was done shopping now. He was totally satisfied as he had managed to save money that day. That's when he noticed Hojo standing there in the rain. He wondered if she had forgotten to bring an umbrella, then dismissed it as having nothing to do with him. But then he remembered the Andes incident. As he turned away, he ended up giving her his umbrella, or rather, shielded her from the rain. He told her she might catch a cold, and explained that he was giving her the umbrella. She asked if he was sure. And then, as they walked in the rain, they were together under the same umbrella. He mused that somehow they had ended up walking together, despite thinking he had given her the umbrella entirely. He pondered Hojo's behavior, noting that most girls would have refused to share an umbrella with some guy. As their shoulders bumped into each other, he stumbled slightly and apologized, blushing. But she said, smiling, that it was fine, acknowledging there wasn't much room for both of them. He thought about how close she was and commented that it was made for one person after all, so there wasn't much they could do about it. He gulped, realizing that thinking about all of this made him a bit nervous. Even at this distance, he felt like she was trying to get on his good side, and the doubt never left his mind. Then he heard the sound of a truck approaching at full speed. He thought it wasn't as if she was actually having any fun with him. In the next second, the truck splashed a wave of muddy water. Yuta instinctively stepped in front of her and got completely soaked. As the truck drove off, Hojo looked toward it in shock. She asked if he was okay. But he replied by asking if she was okay. It appeared both of them were fine. She then pointed out that he wouldn't have gotten soaked had he used the umbrella. She had a valid point, and Yuta felt quite embarrassed. He dismissed it, saying it was fine as long as she wasn't wet, stating it was whatever. But as soon as they got back under the umbrella, it began leaking. Now both of them were drenched, staring at each other with wide, stunned eyes. She suddenly laughed wholeheartedly. She looked beautiful and was blushing as she playfully questioned what he was even doing, Tono. Yuta, feeling a bit down, apologized, asserting it wasn't like that. She reassured him she knew it wasn't, and that it was alright, then thanked him for protecting her earlier. Yuta thought to himself that Hojo was a strange girl, one who laughed at the strangest moments. The sky had cleared up now. He suggested they hurry home. As she called out to him, she rushed ahead, urging him to run unless he wanted to catch a cold. But he thought to himself that Hojo was someone he needed to watch out for, as he blushed under the now clearing sky.